So let's talk about K2Think. We're going to start with going briefly through the report that came out, testing it out on the web app, then showing you how I configured it for myself on a GPU. And then we're going to move on to Cursor and give you the API or the docs behind it in terms of how I'm using it for business use cases and why I think this is super important and a big leap forward for businesses who care about security, owning their piece, and not being dependent on the major names for processing their files, which they don't want to share with anyone. That being said, let's begin. And this is a paper that was recently released on September 9. Today is September 12th. So a couple of days back, we've taken those days and we've tried to download the model and try to play with it as much as we can so we can start pushing it to our clients and different businesses who want an open source and secure model. So essentially, this model was based off of the Quinn 2.5 base model, and they added certain algos to it and they fine tuned it in a way where it's performing. And I want to show you this performance over here. One of the best performing open source models that you can see is scoring over the top over here, matching the quality of well-known models that we know. Another thing I want to show you is this graph over here, which is showing you how much it tested in the math score compared to other things. So we find that K2Think is especially strong on challenging math benchmarks, and I'm going to show you in a bit why, because of the chain of thought and how it does everything, while also maintaining respectable performance on code and science. And you can see it ranking over here compared to GPT OSS, Quint 3, and all these different kind of models. And even look at O3 high over here is 92.26. It's coming pretty close in terms of an open model. Very important note being 32B parameters, meaning that's much, much smaller than these trillion parameter models that we have in the marketplace. So this is essentially what it is. And once you see a report like this, you'd want to test it out. You'd want to see how does it take a query or a question or a prompt from the user plan and think about it and then go through the model and give you the final response. A quick demo over here we can see is I was trying to write a Python code and hello world Python code. So you can see it's really, really fast how how fast it thinks over here and goes through this chain of thought and gives you the response. And of course, it depends on your GPU and so on. For enterprise grade, they can get to this level, but for if you're an individual, you can do what I've done over here, and you can see how you can set it up for yourself. And it's still really fast. I'm going to show you in a bit. So let's ask it, for example, what is 2 plus 2? Very simple, but you can see like it just gives you an answer very quickly and goes through a chain of thought as well. So one of those tough questions that I know people ask is, can you draw a SpongeBob ASCII? They say this is one of the toughest tasks for the LLM, but let's see. So now it's thinking. So it drew this over here. I'd wonder what it thought about. It said, okay, the user is significantly asking for this SpongeBob with this, way simpler versions like this. So it went through a thought process to try and it came out with this over here. So you see how long it went for a thought process, and you can see the token consumed and so on. Anyways, this is essentially how everything works, and why I think this is a big step forward is that anyone can download this LLM from Hugging Face. I don't have it open here, but go on Hugging Face, you can download this LLM. It's approximately 62 GB, and you can have it on your PC. If you have a strong enough hardware or PC, you can run it and you can do everything locally without connecting to the internet, and you have basically an AI that is yours. And on top of that, you can fine tune it to what you want. And I'm going to show you exactly how we built layers around it. So essentially, we took the K2Think model, downloaded it during the last 4 days as soon as it came down. And we started playing around and building things around it. And the main objectives we had is we wanted to make it for business. We wanted to make it UAE optimized, meaning that the currency that we have in the UAE, the dirham, we wanted Arabic support. We wanted to give it regional business context and so on. And we wanted to be high performance for individuals as well as enterprises. And then we wanted to see its advanced reasoning basically. And I'm going to go and skim through everything over here because I want to jump into the fun part, which is actually building things out with you and running it live with you. So you can see these two websites over here. As an outcome of this, we said, okay, there are SMEs in the UAE. How can we create websites? One of the use cases could be, I want to create websites. So you just write a command/website and you can create such websites. So I just told it, create for me a spa website. And this, it just came up with this website over here. You can see also this house of hover effects and so on. And then I told it make for me a coffee shop website, and you can see been there. So you can see it's very simple, but it actually did something, like it outputted a nice, let's say, website over here. I'm sure you can go, I'm going to share the limitations, but I'm sure you can go way beyond this. And let's look at this over here. So essentially, the flow chart of how everything works is that we have the model itself, which is the K2Think model being over here. I fed it business context of the UAE, essentially the language, when is the vacations. I'm going to go into details of all that. And then we attached it to a VLLM server because I hosted it on the vast.ai. I tried different tools. This was the best one over here. And this was sufficient to run it for me. I tried different GPUs as well, the A100 and so on. It was not sufficient at the beginning. And I highly, highly recommend going through this technical paper over here on Hugging Face for the parameters to make sure you get it right at the first go. And I'm paying anywhere between $2 per hour to run this. And compared to API costs and what you can achieve, and for some, you may be thinking, okay, that's a lot of money for 1 month if I'm going to run it every single day, right? Compared to API costs from OpenAI and all these other tools, for the amount of users that you're going to use as well for heavy duty usage, this may be a good option for you if you're going for enterprise, because it's not that much, believe me, if you're doing like heavy duty work, keeping AI on 24/7 for you if you're relying only on API. So let's go back here. So this is essentially hosting it on a GPU, or if you have a GPU yourself, which is strong enough, the hardware is strong enough, you don't need to pay $2 per hour. You just run it on your PC. And then you have over here a client layer, essentially is the CLI. I'm going to show you the tool that we like developed around this LLM, and it gave us certain configurations. And batch processing, very, very important, because you have a context window for this kind of model. And to go around the context window and the max amount of tokens, and given the GPU constraints that you have, meaning that to run a lot of code, or to write a lot of code, to read a lot of code without it forgetting, because it's a small brain, you can imagine it that way. Then you can do batching, essentially do one batch, run it again, do another batch and run it again, and so on. And the performance metric essentially was this. It can go to 2000 tokens per second, but that's enterprise grade. Hardware requirements over here, and essentially what you do is you download the K2Think model, install the dependencies, go in Hugging Face and look at that, download the server, run the server, put the necessary things on the server, and then you launch your CLI essentially, and then you just go through the system and just start the system. And the 8 functions that we have added over here are these. As you can see, you can write emails, right? So what the LLM can do now, if it's running on your PC, is not connected to the internet, if you're running for enterprise, you don't want anyone to have access to any email that you have or any confidential data that you have, you can write now as much as emails as you want with this, which is really, really good. And how it comes up with everything, I'm going to show you in a bit. You can write them in English and Arabic. You can analyze big Excel sheets and files and get business insights out of that. You can review contracts, documentations, if there's any risk, and then give them like highlight the risky parts and so on. You can calculate business financials, marketing data, sales data. You can generate websites that I just showed you over here, the exact function that I just showed you. And then you can create reports if you're going to report to your boss or to your employer or whoever it is. You can create as much as reports you want. And imagine now this running 24/7 on your PC. You like, it's not connected to the internet, and you just have, and this is essentially the promise of AI agents, right? So some usage examples over here is right, slash emails, welcome email to our premium consulting services. It's going to generate for your emails. Arabic, make this in Arabic for me, and analyze the sales data that I got, and so on. So essentially, this is what it is. And then I want to show you this important part, which is the enhanced CLI over here. So for the enhanced CLI, essentially what we can do is we can do a lot of things, in a lot of segments as well in terms of a business. If you look at the marketing department, the different departments, here's we just have 8 functions over here, which I thought that were the most common functions within enterprises. And I just explained to you the metrics and how we set it up and so on. And the most importantly is this, which I want to show you, is the UAE context. So depending on the context you are at, you can set your system prompts and you can give it context as well to run through. And I'm going to show you exactly how in a bit, but this is, you can run the context through. Essentially, what's the legal frameworks here? What's the rules here? What's the pricing here? What's the Islamic finance over here? What's the VAT considerations over here? what's the culture over here, and so on. If you feed it all that, it gives you really good responses, such as currency and so on. And you can customize it as much as you want. You're gonna see how I made it kind of like Cloud Code. And a very, very fun fact, if you want to like go take this to the extreme, and this is what we're trying to do over here as well. 4 days is not enough for that. But if you want to take it to extreme, make look at Cloud Code, look at how they do sub agents, look at how they do, for example, the commands, the functionality, the init function where they look at the code base, they read files, give it access to tools to go on the internet through MCPs and so on. You're gonna have one powerful LLM for yourself over here. But I'm just showing you that what's the possibilities of all of this before we start going and heading into the code itself. Another thing I wanted to show you over here is essentially this architecture. If you're gonna do it for your organization or for your business, if you're a solopreneur, let's say, or you have a one-man business, or if you're an enterprise as well, download this, write the different departments you have under that, just go and write what you want done in terms of tasks, and this is how you're gonna get your tasks done. And let me just show you, these are communication channels, analysis, and so on. And taking into consideration the, as I mentioned, the context that you want and the performance. Highly suggest you go take this from the technical reports. And here is essentially what do you need. And this is how you select the commands. What do you need? What's the content type? Do you want to create? Do you want to analyze? Do you want to communicate? What do you want to do exactly? And you can get everything done over here. And the final thing I want to show you is the architecture. And the architecture is essentially this. Don't get intimidated, but essentially, this is how we set everything up. We're going to start building on top of this even further to make this that level of Cloud Code, or something that's at the level of Codex and all these other tools where we can spawn, let's say, 100 sub agents of these with the right GPUs and so on, where we can do tasks simultaneously within a company or within an entity, or do research with in academia or whatever it is for the company we need. Of course, we're at very early ages, but I just early times right now. But I want to just show you what we're planning and what's possible with all of this. And some decisions you can make around this is how much GPU do we need? How much can we afford? What's the cost over here? And is whether it's worth it or not. And then you can go into much details, as you can see. I'm not going to go through these details, but you can go into a lot of details with all of this. So without further ado, let's jump into now the cursor, and I want to show you exactly how I've done this. So you can see over here, this is cursor. You can of course bring it into anything, VS Code or the terminal by itself or whatever it is. And I would just want to show you I've done a lot of testing with all of this. As you can see over here, a lot of testing. Even just before this video, recording this video, I was fixing a bunch of things. And you see this archive folder over here. Insane amount of things I've added here as well. So let's close this. Let's make it very simple to use, and let's just run it. Just let's remove Cloud Code because it's helped a lot in terms of build everything around this system over here. So let's just write this function, and you can see this nice logo. You can customize it as much as you want, which has 8 specialized business commands and whatever it is. Here are the commands, and this is what you could do. And exactly what I showed you just now in the documentation. You can write emails, you can analyze things, you can do things. So essentially, you can say hello, and it's going to answer. You see how fast it answers. And I add the status bar over here just so I know how fast the response time is and how much token I'm consuming, just to have an observability. You can add a lot of things in terms of logging later on. So hello, how can I assist you today? Who are you, or who made you, is a very important thing. This is very important when we were testing it out to make sure it works, is to know that whether the system prompt is working well or not. So we say, who are you? It goes, I'm an AI developed by MBZUAI, designed to do various tasks and so on, so on, so on. Why? So you make sure if it has context from the previous answers or not by asking why. You say, I was developed to do all of this. My purpose is this, meaning that it has context from what it just told me. Amazing. Let's see, I never tested it out, but amazing. I'm glad I could assist you. Ask me anything. So what's to, and this is basically me running it, and no, like it's on my own server, let's say my GPUs, but if you have your own GPUs on your PC, and you can run this as well. So 2 plus 2 equals 4. Amazing. Let's so try certain commands over here just to show you. For example, This can have access to my emails. This can have access to everything right now. I can connect them and build the connections essentially. And let's assume we have access to our emails, or let's assume I just went to my job and I said, I want to write email to the HR department because I'm very tired or very mad today. I deserve a raise or whatever it is. So I'm going to write something like email. Look at the commands at the top. You can write as many commands as you want, by the way. So emails slash, you can write, I want a raise. So write an email to the HR department. And this reminds me of the first days of LLMs where you had to do these brackets for prompts and so on. Write email for a pay raise. So now it goes and generates email. I had live streaming on. Essentially, it's telling you, okay, these are the emails being generated, and there's like a ticker that's blinking and telling you it's thinking and so on. I just removed that because it's faster this way. So let's see. There it is. So let's see what it did. So it went through the process over here. It said, this was it. Yes. Answer number one, formal approach. This is the subject. This is the email. Answer number two, friendly approach. This is subject. This is the email. Essentially, give me all these emails. Do you want to save it or not? If you push Y, it's going to be saved in the document. If you push N, it's not going to be saved. So I'm not going to save it. I just want to show you over here. Amazing. This is for the emails. You can write emails. Now we can try batch, or let's try analyze. And analyze, yeah, let's try analyze. Let's drag a report, and I'm going to show you how it's going to analyze a report for you. If you have a report, let's see what it says. It's accepting a report over here. So if you have data with insights, an Excel sheet or whatever, you can drop things in. Let's see where's the mock data that I've created over here. So sample data, let's drop it into here. Essentially, it's telling me in this data, we can see all these files. So let it analyze and let's see what results is going to come out with. So now it's analyzing. So yeah, it's much easier if you have the blinking option over here and telling you the token count, but just let's assume we can see it. The next one, let's do calculate is easy. Reports is really nice. Website as well. Let's try the different ones in terms of how it can do things. But yeah, the main point I want to make with all of this, as we wait until this works, is that you can now customize it as much as you want, but keep two things in mind. One is if you have employees, if you have a team and so on, how can you write the documentation and make their lives easy in terms of doing the work with AI within whatever they're doing? That's for the employees. And two, what manual processes do you do on your daily basis, and what connections can you give to this LLM to make it work for you as well? So let's see what happened over here. So you can make it much nicer, of course, but and the reason I'm doing this is, as well, as I want you to see its thinking process. So it decided, okay, I'm going to analyze all of this. Let's start by analyzing the CSV file first. I need to list out all the columns. Then it started multiplying things to see the sum of things, so it makes sense of it. Now the sum of all of this is this. The number of transactions is this. This is cost 6,267.86 dirhams. The number of unique characters is this. Like it's gone through the process of analyzing every single detail over here, and then so it cut off over here, right? Very important point. Glad it did this. There's something called the max token count. So depending on the GPU you have and everything you have, the maximum amount of tokens it can generate for you in terms of characters and so on, there's a certain number over there. You can increase and decrease that. Take that from the paper for now, but essentially, if you increase it, it can give you more outputs. If you decrease it, it's going to give you less outputs. And thinking also consumes tokens as well. This is thinking essentially. So you can see all the tokens were consumed on thinking over here because I've set within the configuration a max amount of tokens. You can remove that and it can do a lot of things for you and it can keep on going. And that's why batching things is very important, like chopping things up as well, due to this model having a small context window, meaning that it can't remember a lot of information or process a lot of information at once, like different models, which, like for example, Cloud Sonnet, they can process 1 million, they have a 1 million context window. And before that was Google Gemini. And then you have 128,000, I think it's for GPT. One of them, I'm not sure about the numbers, but they're in these ranges. So essentially, this was said. We went through the chain of thought, and this is what happened. Amazing. Let's test something else. Write a report. So let's write slash report a dog fighting. No, let's make something useful. the finance data of AI tech firms. So now it's generating the report for us. It's going to give us a report. It's going to tell us you want to save it or not. So completely customizable. And I add this plan mode over here, meaning that instead of going through the chain of thought only, you can plan double the chain of thought before going through the process. It I'm testing things out. It may increase, it may decrease performance. So the beauty of this is that you can test everything out. So you can see over here, generated report for this, the executive summary, the finance data of the AI tech firms have been analyzed and so on. Key findings: revenue growth, profitability, partnerships. This is what recommendation is this, and conclusions is this. Do you want to save it or no? We say no. So you can give it more information. And it's going to tell you, okay, how much time this took to generate and so on. And the final thing, let's try website. Let's say you're a business, you want to create a small website, and you can create presentations by Stash website as well. If you were going to present something as a web page, you can say website of tech firms using AI in Dubai. So now it's generating the website for that. And it can be as this simple. And you can, and this is also something I'm going to take it as a next step, is that we're going to take whatever is happening, and before the prompt goes, or the prompt that anyone's going to write goes through the LLM, we're going to have a layer of there which is going to be run through an enhanced prompt LLM. Essentially, we're going to call the LLM, we're going to call K2Think, we're going to fix that prompt to be optimized for K2Think, and then feed it into K2Think. So you can see over here, it went and created this HTML CSS file. It's this, and essentially it says tech firms, the title. This is the CSS, essentially the style. And then it tells you, the header says tech firms leveraging AI in Dubai, exploring innovations. Then you have the about section. Then you have the company section. Then you have a lot of other sections, but truncated, like it's cut off because of display. But you can just save the file, say yes, and then go run and look at everything. So if you write -y, it's going to tell you this. You can open it in browser over here, and you can see your website that you have just generated. So essentially, this is it. And this is why I think it's going to change everything. Because imagine if companies can just create their own thing. And you'd say and you'd argue we have open source models since forever, right? But they were not that good. If you've tested any of them out, they were not that good. But this gives you performance that you can work with it at an enterprise level, that gets manual repetitive tasks done. And that's why I'm super excited and what this will come out of this, and also us building on top of this model.